Okay, so that's the quick summary. Now what we're going to do is deal with freeing federally convicted political prisoners. Federally convicted political prisoners. That is, those who've been convicted in a U.S. court for fighting against the injustices that this town hall meeting is about. And right now, the United States government, even under the leadership of President Barack Obama, has scores, more than hundreds of people in prison because they fought against the injustices that we deal with today decades ago. And if we don't pressure President Obama to let them go, they will stay in prison and die. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up the leader of the National Jericho Movement, Mr. Jihad Abdul-Meet, and also one of the leading members of the National Conference of Black Lawyers, Ms. Nkechi Taifa. And they're going to lead a discussion on how we're going to go to certain Congress people who have been actually engaged in trying to reform the police laws on heavy sentencing. They haven't done enough, but since they showed that interest, what Jihad and Nkechi are going to do is outline a program of action that hopefully all our groups and individuals will join in over the next 5 months to persuade President Obama to do what he won't do unless we pressure him, and that is to let our people go. Thank you very much. We cheated on the first section. I learned how to cheat so well from my leader, Adjo Ayatoro. I want y'all, she is an extraordinary leader. I'm going to keep on, but she is my leader. But we're going to stop cheating. Literally, from now on, no more speeches. All of us, I know so many of you, and I know I got an idea about the rest, but all of us can give a speech, and I know many of you are extraordinary speakers. No Martin Luther King Ballad of the Bullet speeches. No Malcolm X Ballad of the Bullet speeches. No Martin Luther King I Had a Dream speeches. We are literally planning in the next 3 sessions campaigns to free political prisoners, number 1, to stop this police state violence, number 2, and to end mass incarceration. So we are asking for your contribution to the moderators as they lay out their plan of action. Lay out what your group or you can do to make their plan work. Thank you so much. Jihad Abdul-Meet and Nkechi Taifa. And other moderators might join in, but they will lead the discussion.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Greetings of peace to everyone. Thank you, Brother Thomas, and my sister and brother here, acknowledging Dr. Short and Attorney Naji Mujahid and others that I may know in the audience. And definitely giving praise and thanks for the opportunity for us to come together as a community to be able to plan and strategize together, so the time will be very valued. So basically, I'm the chairperson, the co-chair of the National Jericho Movement. You may or may not have heard. www.thejerichomovement, not complicated, or just put the Jericho Movement and Google it. You'll get a list of the political prisoners from the Civil Rights and Black Liberation Movement era, that's the 60s and 70s, and some coming up to speed. Jericho represents those. We started in 1998, when I myself was incarcerated at that time by Herman Ferguson, who's passed away, Jalil Abdul-Muttaqin, who's still a political prisoner in his 44th year now, a former member of the Black Panther Party, and Safia Bukhari, who's passed away also. So we want to give some focused strategy on what's going on. I served 23 years in prison. I guess I was the lucky one to get out because my comrades are still there. I was formerly a member of the Black Liberation Army also, and just for your information, I have bank robbery charges, as they would find it. The getting paid is us winning, so no, I didn't. And just like the Marines and the United States Army, we didn't keep the money and buy sneakers and gold chains. It was for you fighting a revolutionary struggle in that time period in the 60s and 70s, trying to hone out the land in the 5 states, which would be South Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. For the black nation that we had our own constitution, and that was the formulation, and the money went there. not in my pocket. I think I might have been able to get an ounce of reefer out of it back in the day. Big time. It wasn't illegal neither, so there you go. That's my getting paid. But the getting paid, the payoff is us winning and what we're talking about here today. Ashe, free the land. So I'm going to start off by introducing Attorney Nkechi Taifa, and she's going to explain some things, so she has to leave at 4, about the climate with the legal process. And as Brother Thomas said, we want to focus on that issue. There's so many issues, but we want to try to focus on that issue about freeing the freedom fighters that fought for our freedoms that are languishing in prisons today. And Sister Nkechi is going to give a kind of layout of what's going on legally with that.
Thank you very much, Brother Jihad, and thank you, everyone, Brother Thomas, Sister Stephanie, and everyone. So great to have you back in D.C., Sister Ajwa. Okay, I just want to give just a little background with respect to the landscape, with respect to what's happening in this country with respect to clemency. Clemency is a broad term that deals with the executive or the president's pardon power. And under clemency, you have commutations and you have pardons. And commutations is simply a shortening of a sentence. Okay, so that's really what we're talking about now with respect to our political prisoners and prisoners of war who are federally incarcerated, and those who are state incarcerated as well, pursuant to the governor's power. Right now, there's an initiative going on in this country called Clemency Project 2014, which is a project out of the Department of Justice where they are looking at primarily drug offenses which were overcharged, contributing to mass incarceration, where people have been really serving inordinately lengthy periods of time, and the law has changed. Many times the law has changed from when it was decades ago to where it is now. So the President of the Department of Justice is looking at some of those cases and commuting sentences. It is a massive undertaking, and as a result of the massiveness of the undertaking, they're really just focusing on drug cases. And even within that category, they're nonviolent drug cases. They're cases that are not gang involved. They're cases where someone has served at least 10 years. They're cases where there are a lot of restrictions and limitations even within that stricture. So when we're talking about our political prisoners, our prisoners of war, they're not even in the picture because most of them, they're not convicted of drug charges, okay? They're convicted of revolutionary actions or framed or, whatever the case may be. And many of them are victims of the COINTELPRO, the FBI's one secret illegal war waged against the black nation to expose, disrupt, misdirect, discredit, and otherwise neutralize the activities of black nationalist hate-type organizations and their groupings, their leadership, their membership, and their supporters. Now, I only bring that up because what can happen, because it has happened in the past, there can be a mass, or shall we say, blanket clemency for a class or a category of people. And I always submit that there are unfinished issues from the time of, shall we say, the civil rights movement, unfinished issues with respect to people who heeded that call for black power, okay, and, sought to answer the questions about why isn't anybody doing anything about all of this madness. And there were illegal tactics that were used against the people who heeded this call, and many of them are still languishing in prison. They are elders now. Okay, and as Brother Jihad has said, many of them, unfortunately, have passed. So is there any specific remedy that can happen right now at this point? Brother Jihad is going to talk about one, but I just want to say, in terms of commutation, it has happened before, in terms of commuting the sentences of political prisoners. It has happened before. Many we don't necessarily might not know about it because they were our North America or white allies to the Black Liberation Movement, two of whom I represented in a case here in Washington, D.C. that was called the Resistance Conspiracy case, also known as the Capitol bombing case. But Susan Rosenberg and Linda Evans' sentences were, in fact, commuted. Okay, now these were supporters and allies, again, of the, of the movement. But the actual brothers and sisters, Mutulu Shakur still sits in prison. Suniyata al-Khoury still sits in prison. And, the list goes on and on. So we really need to free our black political prisoners and prisoners of war. I might want to also say it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think it was in 1977 or sometime around that time, President Carter commuted the sentences of 5 Puerto Rican nationalists who were convicted in 1954, I think it was. Yeah, I was born. Okay, guess what? Shooting up the House of Representatives. Their sentences were commuted. And now many of our black political prisoners have served more time than they even served at that time. So it can happen. But there has to be a strategy. There has to be a groundswell of attention to our political prisoners. We all knew, and I'm about to give up the mic back to Brother Jihad in just one second, but coming up, we all knew the name of Nelson Mandela. We all stood out in front of the South African embassy. We got arrested. We boycotted. We stand up for the freedom fighters of other liberation movements. But, we push our own freedom fighters under the rug, and we don't speak out their names, and no one knows, of their deeds. And as a result, when your paper says to lobby Bobby Scott or to lobby the acting pardon attorney Robert Zauser or to lobby former Attorney General Holder, unless there is a movement behind that, we will not get anywhere. And I'm going to bring up Brother Jihad again, and he's going to talk about a movement in which we can actually use to wage to make this happen. This is not something that's going to happen by the end of Obama's term. I'm just telling you that right now. Okay, let's just not get it twisted. We are talking about a protracted struggle, but we have to begin somewhere. It's not that we're just beginning. We've been doing this for decades, but there really needs to be a concerted effort and action now, and Brother Jihad is going to speak to that, and then we're going to open it up to the body as a whole.
Thank you, Sister Nkichi. Right on, definitely so. Now, I have to admit, I feel some type of way when I present this issue about freedom fighters in prison. I feel some type of way about the campaigning and getting support for a campaign to get political prisoners out of jail. And you know why, sisters and brothers? Because sometimes I feel like I'm begging a bunch of black people to get your freedom fighters out. And then you're sitting there, who, what, where, are you sure? Let me talk. I'll take it back to the, and I may sound facetious, don't want to sound sarcastic, but it is what it is. I feel that way because this is what I do as the national chair. I've been involved in the Panther Party. I was 16 years old, did all this time in prison, come out. I still have a wife, 3 beautiful children, 4 actually. One is when I was a teenager. And I do this work all of the time, and all of the time I'm on center stage, and I'm like trying to convince audience of why this is important. And Dr. Kukai here, my friend, we spent some time this afternoon, talking about just making these historical connections and why it is so important from your health, your holistic, your well-being. This is connected. We're going to focus on this particular strategy now, but as the previous presentation already pointed out, there's so many issues. So Dr. Short over here mentioned that we're going to have to look at this like something like a baseball game. You got the amateur league, you got the professional league, you got those on the side, you got some on the bench. And I was listening to my young brother here in the black shirt eloquently point out how nobody can be really left behind, all right? And that includes our political prisoners, our freedom fighters, all right? So hopefully everybody can already get right on that page and nobody's scratching their head like what for and where, because if you are, I'm going to ask you to get the heck out of here. No, I'm just joking. I want you to understand what's going on. But we've been criticized as old elders, I'm 62 this month, for not passing the torch. And I accept that criticism for every last person here with gray in their beard, all right, for whatever the reason is, for not successfully passing the torch to our young people. But I also have to give some objective, constructive criticism for our young people for not picking up the torch that's handed to you. It's your responsibility also, like we were when we were teenagers, to go out there and thirsty, reading, studying, you making the connections, not somebody begging you to understand it. You make the connections. You are the activists. You are the vanguard. I was 16 years old in the Panther Party, flipping pancakes, going to our breakfast program, and shooting at the police, and being shot at in high school. 16. All of those, from Huey Newton to everybody. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, they were assassinated at 40. Everybody's relatively young. They put their work in when they're young. It is the youth as the vanguard. So I'm asking my young sisters and brothers, and all of us, of course, that, we really get on the page right now and suit up and focusing on this strategy to get them out. I'm going to pass something around. It's only 30 sheets, so if you're with somebody, could you please share the sheet? I got it divided up there. All right, thank you very much. Dr. Short, Randy Short, said that this is different levels, and once again, what's your name, brother? Isaiah. I'm going to key off of things that y'all said, about everybody and how this is, this is 307 million people in the United States of America, roughly, give or take a million if I'm off of my stats. Very diverse, so many different interest groups, and things change off the radar very quickly. There's so many things going on. It's not like a country overseas where there's two ethnic groups, and that's how it goes. We're all over the place. A lot of times we address things by emotions. Trayvon Martin dead on the street. Michael Brown. Come on. And when the emotion's gone, the activity is gone. So we want to address also the sustainability of our struggle, which goes into the first workshop. If I had the opportunity to say something, I would have mentioned that as a strategy. How can we use that critical core to sustain ourselves so that we don't drop the ball on some of these things? All right. The sheet that that's being passed around now is a strategy that was crafted by Dr. Mutulu Shakur. He is an acupuncturist. And we have Dr. Kukai, a student here. There's things he told me just over the last hour just blew me away about our healing and health. Dr. Mutulu Shakur is an acupuncturist. It would be nothing to administer to hundreds of people a day at his clinic, at the Lincoln Detox Clinic in Harlem. Harlem, right? Bronx. And now he's in prison, languishing there, needed support to get them home. They're federal prisoners. This strategy here models itself off of the TRC in South Africa, and there was also many other countries that had it, but South Africa being the most pronounced that we know about, because primarily of Nelson Mandela and the involvement of United States citizens in that particular struggle to end apartheid. Okay, so I had to convince many of my own comrades in prison about the viability of this strategy, because they were more in favor of mass struggle, getting the people organized, educating them, and by the hundreds. I don't see that being done in the near future. And so far this year, we had about 5 comrades die in prison. So now, being realistic, as my brother said, the changing fabric, brick and mortar on the side, using other means to get to where we're going, this struggle is going to have to take on a very diverse aspect. Some of it, the more militant of us, the more militant of us, just going to have to understand, and the less militant, maybe be more gracious with this particular strategy where we lobby politicians. We want to document the history. We have documented our history to present before the Black Congressional Caucus, to lobby to walk into Congress to try to get a commission established called the Truth and Reconciliation. What are we reconciling? Actually, to be honest with you, sisters and brothers, that word is just a tag word as a strategy to get into the door. Usually that strategy is utilized by those that have won. We haven't won. But it's more palatable to say truth and reconciliation than to say Black power, let's take it down. You understand that? Black power, let's take it down. I think that the remaining 12 Panthers in prison may be dead. And that's the truth. So while the struggle on the street goes on, protesting mass incarceration, police brutality, and all that is going on, we're going to need to siphon off an elite group, a critical core of individuals to be able to do this work. And last thing I want to say before I open the floor for suggestions, assuming that you're reading that, I've been in a lot of demonstrations with people hooting and hollering, and those demonstrations are very important. But I may roll up on the side of somebody and said, did you write those demands out to present? No. I said, you mean to tell me that if your enemy walked out the door right now and said, what do you want? We're ready to listen. There may not be a soul to represent that. Don't get caught out there with your pants down. somebody's going to have to do the pen to pencil and write and articulate what we want, be it a classical lawsuit, a case action suit, a demand to Congress, or whatever. Somebody's going to have to get to in front of the emperor to be able to present those demands. Somebody. So while everybody's organizing on the street, demanding that, maybe doing whatever else is happening to build up education amongst the community, organize the community, mobilize the community, it's going to have to be still a group of people to say, okay, this is what is happening, this is what we want. Do we understand that? So how to get to that, the floor is open for your suggestions. Yes, should I pass the mic over there? Yes. Yes. Oh. Okay. Okay, yeah. No, okay, but he asked, can I identify the parties? You can say it yourself, brother.
I apologize. No intention to speak, but I need to know who I'm talking about and what they did and why they're there, so that when I do whatever it is you have me do, I'm targeting it on certain people. And also, God, people don't know anything, so we need some information.
All right. Thank you, brother, for that question. And people do know a lot, though. It's just so, when I tell you this next sentence, you're going to realize. We're talking about primarily members of the Black Panther Party. Who does not know the Black Panther Party in the United States? Right, no, I'm going to get to that. Who doesn't know that? That's what we're talking about. Those individuals that fought in various different ways and either committed paralegal actions or were framed and set up, regardless of the case, victims of counterintelligence program under A. Jacob Hoover, whatever the case may be, they're in prison, been there for decades. The names of those individuals are on the website that I mentioned in the beginning, the Jericho Movement. You can Google that, www.thejerichomovement has the list of the bios and the cases of every last individual that I am talking about. So to answer the brother's question, for the time's sake, but we already mentioned Dr. Mutulu Shakur as being one, and Sundi Alakoli, who happens to be a sister of Assata Shakur's co-defendant. Everybody knows Assata Shakur. Everybody knows Assata Shakur. Good. Everybody supports Assata Shakur. Amen. I see. Okay. All right. Now, we're not talking about Afeni. We're not talking about Tupac's mom, if that's who you're referring to. We're talking about Sister Joanne Chesimard by her name that the government uses. All right, so that, brother, the list is there on there. We're talking about a set number of prisoners that are federal. There are also a lot of prisons that are state. Mumia Abu Jamal, we know of them, Jalil Abdul Mutakin, who started Jericho Movement, Herman Bell, and many more, Gerald Fitzgerald, and many more Panthers that are also on the website. All right, so that answers that. So what are some of the suggestions about presenting this to the government, the Congress, lobbying, and whatever? Anybody? Yes, whoever was first. Let's get the youngster first.
I'm having a great. I just suggest power of petition, legal binding petition to get the word, the protest, make a difference, present to the mayor, governor, or Congress to make social change. Also, I'm calling that all organizations, when everybody's seen it, it was on CNN. When the African-American male had his hands up laying down and he said, do not shoot. I'm asking everybody in here, someone to start a petition to call that police department and tell them that they want that officer fired from the department. Because I'm even asking the Department of Justice to get involved because it don't make any sense. The man was complying. So I'm just asking, it's strength in numbers, remember that.
All right, so what I got out of that was the petition piece, and just to let the brother know, there's been numerous petitions that went out for Jericho with the demands, either with a brother or a sister going to the parole board. So that is a viable, ongoing strategy. So that's acknowledged.
No speech as Thomas requested. Nevertheless, media attention. We have a broad swath of media agents within our race to address the issues that are presently at the forefront of our attention. Now you're speaking about political prisoners. I'm not even hip to some of the names. I just now spoke up about Afeni, and I had the wrong Shakur. So, I mean, but the idea is to get more focus on what actually matters, and the best means to do that is mass media, and we got enough agents in that circle in order to accomplish that task. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Okay, so the brother mentioned about the use of the media, and that is definitely a viable strategy and is duly noted. Yes, who is down here? Okay, sister.
My question is, what do we do with people like the Black Caucus who do not help us? What do we do with them? How do we go about making them accountable for not reacting to our plight?
Besides replacing them, running them out of town, how do we deal with the impotent Black Caucus? And I add that because I agree with the sisters. Anybody want to address that real quick? Don't vote for them. Yes, one word. And
You replace them. And that's part of a major reason we don't have them, because unfortunately most black people are only vote Democratic, and we don't have our own independent political agenda. So we ask people to do something who we pay for to do a job, instead of telling people to do the job, and if you don't do it, you get fired. That's as simple as that.
I agree. Amen. Amen. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Right here.
Thank you.
These are my sisters here. I think that we have to be real clear. Some of the Black Caucus do support us and have supported us for a long time. So it's not fair to just throw all of them under the bus. And so I think, one, we need to recognize and continue to build, and I know Nkechi continues to work with them, around those who do, and then how do we educate and demand for those who don't? Well, sometimes you just can't get
That is true. And that is true, but just to acknowledge the sister's comment, this TRC initiative is being directed toward the Black Caucus, so under the bus, over the bus, here they come. We're going to present it to them. Yes, indeed, sister. Amen.
Yes, from my experience, I'm 54 years old, and nothing can be done without web designers, master web designers, getting on the social media and speaking political prostitution, as you spoke of, to get the people on the ground floor, to get them interested. They should already be interested, but they are not.
Yes, just on this issue of how we can have an impact. We were talking about elected officials and different things like that. For example, in this past mayoral election, only 23% of people that could vote actually voted for the mayor. So there's a lot of us that could be voting that aren't voting, just very low turnouts for things. And then to educate yourself on each individual that's in the box, don't just check, the name. But if we educate ourselves and then put people that, instead, a lot goes into lobbying, but we could also put up people that don't have to be lobbied because they have it at their heart, they have it at their core, that if I get elected, this is what I'm going to represent, this is what I'm going to do. And there are so many smaller positions that we might not look into, but they actually have an impact, especially in community, whether it's over different, police chiefs that get elected or different things like that. We have to be very focused on the smaller positions as well, educate ourselves, and keep those people accountable, and that can have a huge impact. And one simple thing, I think, too, is, for example, if everyone here commits, when I vote in November, I'm going to bring someone that didn't vote last year, find someone that didn't vote. If everybody, if we spread that word and made that type of commitment, that could really help with just keeping people accountable and knowing, instead of having 23% of people voting in little elections, we could have a much higher turnout and really make an impact in what's happening.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, in terms of the Congressional Black Caucus, I wanted to say that recently I was talking to someone who mentioned the fact that...
Could you speak up just a little bit, sister, even with the mic?
Yeah, who mentioned the fact that the Congressional Black Caucus is actually made up of two parts, that they're the elected officials, but they also have a lot of lobbyists from corporations. And the black elected officials, just like a lot of the other officials, don't respond to their constituents. They're serving the interests of the corporations that fund their elections. And they even pointed out that the CBC is receiving money from private private prison complex. And so that is directly related to what we're talking about right now. In addition to holding them accountable at election time, we need to be out at the CBC next month, and calling them to task for taking money from Corrections Corporation of America and other private people involved in the private industry, private prison complex that is contributing to the mass incarceration.
Hi, Ann Wilcox from the National Lawyers Guild. There's a few others of us here, Renee and so forth. At our national convention just this last month in New York, we had Albert Woodfox and Robert King from the Angola Three, two of the three. And they were out, and their challenge was partly after 45 years in solitary confinement. Their challenge was partly a challenge to their convictions, but also a challenge to solitary confinement, and that's something we have to pursue as a legal strategy. And then, of course, you've got the Mumia, and also Lynn Stewart was released on a medical waiver. So it's a combination of all these types of pressures, I think.
Right before we close out, thanks, Nkichi. I would suggest that you go to some of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, for example, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, Jihad's representative, Congressman Robert Scott out of Richmond, as well as that Congressman Luis Gutierrez out of Chicago, from Puerto Rican, who was pivotal in lobbying President Carter for the commutation of sentence, the liberation of a large number of Puerto Rican political prisoners who were doing the exact same stuff that you heard Jihad disclose to all of you about as a historical revelation. I'd say go to them to go with us to go to President Obama to pardon these people or to grant commutations, either one. Then secondly, I suggest that we go to Senator Booker, Congressman Gutierrez, and Congressman Scott and give them a U.S. version of the Korean reparations bill and ask them to introduce that and pass it. If we're serious about, well, I said reparation, Truth and Reconciliation bill. If we're serious about that, if we think that that's viable, introduce the one legislative framework that actually worked on our behalf. Most failed us. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, and I'm just going to close it out. Thank you. Everyone talked about the importance of media. We really need to deal with social media as well. And I don't know if the representatives of Black Lives Matter here, or the Movement for Black Lives and the policy platform, etc., but the young people are forever quoting, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." A quote from Assata Shakur. But we need to hear the name Assata Shakur. We need to hear her co-defendant. We need to hear about the people who are convicted of going into the prison and liberating her. See, we need hashtags on our political prisoners. I know I watched the part of the Democratic National Convention, or one of those conventions, and someone was just in front of the cameras. They just had a sign. It said, "Free Leonard Peltier." I mean, every time I looked, I see the sign. I said, wow, that was a great organizing, just a sign that she kept putting up in front of the Free Leonard Peltier. Those are the things that, Leonard Peltier needs to be free. He should have been granted commutation a long time ago. His has been in for decades in terms of his petition. So I just want to say that we do, Thomas, need to go to our members of Congress and Black, but we can't go empty-handed. We have to go with something. We need to go with a groundswell of support. We need to go with this truth and reconciliation. It's not scary. That's what I love about it, Jihad. Truth and reconciliation. It's not a scary scenario. Okay? Everyone loves what happened in South Africa, whatever we might think about it. I mean, it is a way in which to do it. I'm going to just close with Gilda and Reverend Short, and I think we do need to close out this session. And also, I do want to say, Jihad is walking around with there is a pad for people to sign up. Mm-hmm. If you want to be involved in, it's right over there, please, for your information. Gilda Sharad Ali, attorney extraordinaire.
Well, one thing we need is a groundswell movement. I am and have been for 28 years court-appointed counsel at DC Superior Court. And I represent people who cannot afford a lawyer. And that's 99% of us. And I never see any of my people in any of these meetings. And they are the ones who need us. We need to reach out to them if we have to go door to door, knocking on doors, to get them involved. And they want to be involved. They do want to be involved because they're the ones who are most impacted by what is going on in this society in terms of long-term jail, long incarcerations, in terms of Fourth Amendment violations on a daily basis. They are the ones who are impacted. They are the Black lives that matter. And if we are serious, then we just won't keep talking to the choir. We will go and reach out to our own people and bring them into the fold. How many people in this room have ever had to have a court-appointed counsel? Then you know what I'm talking about. For real.
Okay, I know Thomas.
Okay, I think we're moving on to the next
Okay,
panel
most
because
definitely.
we tight on time. I know that this gentleman wanted to make one last statement. Right next to you.
When we talked about social media, our organization owned a radio station. We own a radio station. We just had our FCC license taken from us this past week. I am mourning a death. Our station, I'm about to tell you, our station was licensed at 103.1 FM by the FCC in 2014. Cynthia Seven went around and we put flyers indoors. We told people, and then we opened a storefront property at 69 Kennedy Street. WOOK-LP was the station. And I say was because we were attempting to give platform and voice to the people and not corporations. I am right now in mourning. I am bitter. I am angry. I am hurt because I went to my people, emptied my pockets of everything that I had in order to secure a license from a government entity, which I don't want to beg them for anything. We got our license, and Radio 1 stood against us.
Okay, we got 30 seconds. 30
Radio
seconds left.
1, yes ma'am, stood against us, petitioned against us every step of the way. We beat them. I couldn't get a lawyer to help us, acted as our own attorney, and we beat them 4 rounds, even past the deadline that they had to keep filing against us. And then one of our own people went to Radio 1 and gave them ammunition, and they attacked my past conviction. Yes, my past conviction, and said that a convicted felon can't hold a license.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Thank you for sharing that. We have to move on. It's a lot to cover. Unfortunately, we really don't want to cut people off, but we're going to have to. We appreciate you sharing that story with us. I just want to give you a few notes on what we're summarizing from this panel. I don't know, where's Brother Jihad? Okay. I want to encourage everybody in this room, if you're interested in working with the Jericho movement and freeing Black political prisoners, please sign up. Please sign up with Brother Jihad outside. Lend your support. It is very, very important. I also want to remind you that there are refreshments in the back by the Grace and Will. Thank you, Reverend Drummer. The church has provided snacks. Please don't be shy to eat them and to drink some. Okay, he said not taking anything home, so please eat up. I just want to close out at the end of this panel to introduce the next panel with some notes that I took in terms of what some of the interventions and strategies that were mentioned during this conversation. So I want to thank Brother Jihad, Sister Nkechi for laying the groundwork for, I feel, was a very informative discussion. And so we heard a lot about the Clemency Project of 2014. We heard that there were a number of unfinished issues that we needed to address, that we really need to be very vigilant and vocal about freeing our Black political prisoners. I really want to underscore that we need to be vigilant and vocal about freeing our Black political prisoners. They are the conscience of our race in the nation. Okay, we talked about the importance of trying to devise strategies and tactics regarding the sustainability of our liberation, that and our struggles, that we needed media attention. We needed to focus on social media. We need our own political agenda. We need web designers. We need political education on candidates that are running for office so that they can be beholden to us. That specifically, this brother said, and I really like, we should not ignore the smallest, or what we feel are the smallest of those positions, because they are the ones that have the impact in our local communities. We received suggestions about lobbying and holding accountable the Congressional Black Caucus. That there are some that are on our side, but there are some that are not. And specifically, our sister Esther said, call them out. You taking private monies, these special interest groups, from these private prison companies that are profiting off the backs of our people. We need to call them out on it. Thomas mentioned the Korean model. Now, it was the Korean, the Japanese model. Okay. We talked about the importance of having, and I want to underscore this because I have to tell you, it's a challenge for me all day, every day. I'm a human rights attorney, and my firm represents abused and neglected children in 5 counties in the state of Maryland. I can't hardly find a Black conscious lawyer to save my life to hire. What is systematically happening to children in the child welfare system, I can't even begin to tell you. In their little bodies are every political, economic, social, and cultural issue. And I can't find Black conscious lawyers. So I want to underscore, sister, the elder, who indicated we need Black conscious lawyers representing our people. So having said that, I want to move on to the next panel.